Hi everyone, this is Don Gold, the art guy, bringing you another art video. And today I want to tell you how to build a better painting by creating powerful focal points. And at the end of our session, I have a bonus section on how to paint puddles. So let's begin with powerful focal points. In my painting classes, if you come to the class, I'm going to ask you two questions. What do you want to paint? And more importantly, why? The answers to these two very important questions will largely determine your focal point. The what you want to paint is your subject matter. This could be a still life, a floral, a portrait, or a landscape. The why, which only you can decide, will determine the content of your work and help you decide the focal area. Once you've answered the why and the what and the why, then comes the hard part, the how. Today I want to show you the 4 contrasts that will give power to your focal point. The 4 contrasts are contrast of size, value contrast, color contrast, and soft versus hard edges. Anytime there's a dramatic difference between elements in your painting, these differences will attract attention. And one of the most basic elements you can use as an artist is shape. You can use the contrast or difference in the relative size of your shapes to lead the viewer to your focal point. Now look at pick one. If all your shapes are the same size and configuration, then the viewer will be bored visually. And look at pick 2. Surround smaller shapes with larger shapes. Use various size shapes throughout the painting to keep the interest of the viewer. And note this, reserve your smallest shapes for your focal area. The contrasts in sizes will grab the viewer's attention and let them know what you thought is most important. Okay, what we want to do is go to another painting, and I want you to look at this painting because size matters. Size contrast is used to draw attention to the focal area. The largest shapes here, the sky, the clouds, the frame, the upper left quadrant, and then the large shapes that make up the water and the large shape of the shoreline, all vary in size and surround the smallest shape, which is the focal point, the steamboat. The viewer's eyes is directed immediately to the most important area of the painting. Hey, do you want to kick up the drama? Then value contrast is another excellent way to dramatize your focal point. Use black and white next to each other. This creates an immediate visual sensation. It will pull your eyes right to the focal point. And now, have you ever heard this? Opposite attract? Anytime you place complementary colors side by side, they visually energize each other. Take one away and the vibration stops. Try using complementary colors side by side in your focal area to increase the power of the area. To find complement of any color, go directly opposite the color wheel. And here, I'll tell you what they are. Red and green, blue and orange, purple and yellow. Now look at this painting. The reds of the flowers are next to the vivid greens of the leaves. And then placing 2 complements, blue and orange, side by side, draws the eye up to the loosely painted flowers. And then lastly, look at this painting, the sunlit tulips. I wanted you to see and feel the strong afternoon sunlight that washed the tulip blooms in almost blinding light. And I want you to see the brightness by placing the darkest value around the flowers and by leaving some of the white paper showing where the light was the strongest. So notice how your eye is drawn right to the tulip blooms because of the strong value contrast. Okay, another effective way to add power to your focal point is to use crisp, hard edges for your shapes in and around the focal area. Now, Place softer, more diffuse edges the farther you get from your focal area to mimic the way your eye actually sees. Now look at this painting. Notice how the edges of the tree shapes and the shoreline are soft everywhere except right where the setting sun has lightened the water. And in that area, the focal point is a hard edge where the distant trees abut the water and where the bushes and shadows meet. These hard edges, coupled with dramatic value change, draw your eye to exactly the point I intended. Okay, now let's take all of this information and put it together. I want you to look at some more paintings. Number 1, contrast the size of your shapes using the smaller shapes within your focal area and surrounding them with the larger shapes. Number 2, the value contrast. Placing your lightest light and your darkest dark within your focal point to attract the viewer's edge. And number 3 is use color contrast. Placing complementary colors opposite side by side to energize your focal area. And number 4, vary your edges. The farther you are from the focal area, the softer the edges may become. Within your center of attention, make your edges hard. And let the viewer know this is where you want their attention. And the last painting here, my smallest shapes are within the mangrove island as my darkest dark in the white of the paper. In addition, I've softened the edges in the foreground where it leads to the viewer's eyes towards the island. Once there, they also notice, and I hope, the spots of intense red and peeking through the green of the mango trees. I put the complements side by side to make my focal area vibrate. You know what, so from now on, I want to see some powerful focal points in your paintings, using size contrast, value contrast, color contrast, and soft and versus hard edges. So now for the bonus section on how to paint puddles. Look at the picture here. Puddles in a roadway, which so often form the depressions of dirt roads after a rain or in the spring of the melting of snow, can be so interesting that they often become the dominant focal point in a picture. Look at the picture at the top. Here we have a simple landscape that without the light puddle in the foreground would certainly have lacked a center of attention or interest. With it, the picture has become alive. The long curves of the meandering road are made much more interesting by the opposing shape of the pool outlines. The eye passes easily through the entire composition, returning to rest in the brilliance of the puddle, which is reflecting the sky overhead. The road was brushed on with a middle value wash, leaving the puddle area with the white of the paper. And then I want you to be careful to keep the water edges of the puddle sharp and crisply formed. Note that the edge of the puddle next to the road embankment is separated from its reflections by a light streak. This device helps to maintain the correctness of the water plane. Now, painting number 2. This picture with its compelling roadway and large mass of the house and barn binds the picture in the right foreground and is an interesting and secondary motif. Here the dark reflections are edged by white surface streaks, especially along its contours. The horizontal streak in the middle of the puddle, by being spaced beyond the center, helps to create the illusion of space depth. Now to sum up, remember a light value puddle has a dark edge and a dark value puddle has a light edge. This concludes our talk for today. See you next time when I'm going to be talking about 5 of the most important rules to paint by.